Hello, everyone. I'm Kaylin from the Homeschool Buyers Co-op, and the Co-op and Homeschool Planet welcomes you to the benefits of online homeschool planning with Robyn Calvi. Robyn is a veteran homeschool mom, expert Homeschool Planet user, manager of the Homeschool Planet Lesson Plan Marketplace, and author of many of the lesson plans you'll find there. She has been an active homeschool mom in Southern California for 22 years. Of her 6 children, 3 have graduated, each having been homeschooled from preschool through high school, and 3 remain at home in grades 7 through 12. Robyn has previously owned a brick and mortar bookstore that catered to homeschool families and currently owns and facilitates a humanities program for middle school and high school students. Having been through many advents of the homeschool movement over the last 2 decades, Robyn loves the flexibility and versatility that Homeschool Planet brings to her homeschooling adventure. Also joining us from Homeschool Planet are its chief designer, Brett Walter, and chief architect, Joe DiStefano. So be sure to have all your tough questions ready. And now I will turn it over to Robyn.
Good morning, Kaylin. Thank you for that kind introduction. I am excited to be here this morning and to share with our viewers the things that online planning can bring to a homeschool adventure. I believe firmly that to get somewhere, you need a plan. You need to know where you're going. You need to know how to get there. And our children's educations matter. And so because of that, we need to take them seriously and plan. And I do have to tell you up front, I am a paper lover. It was very difficult to get me to move to an online planner because my favorite store isn't Nordstrom, it's Staples. My kids know if mom wants a gift card, it's to Staples. Paper planners make me happy. They can be creative and fun, and I love spreadsheets as well. But the reality is, in planning my homeschool year, no matter how many advents I went through in planning, I found that it always fell short to create a planner with paper. And I would reinvent the wheel and found that I had 2 primary issues in planning my homeschool year on paper. The first was the length of time that it took me to plan, and the second was the ability to reschedule when life happens. And life does happen. It especially happens with children. And so I've always preached that people should have a plan and hold it with a loose hand and prepare for it to change. The problem with a paper planner for me was that when it did change, I had to either redo everything or find a way to live with doing something on Monday that my schedule said we were doing the previous Thursday. And I found that using an online planner really solved those 2 issues. And in addition to that, I found it gave me some terrific bonuses. It made my grading far simpler. It helped me to create documents from report cards and transcripts to all those types of documents you need to give your charter school or ISP or umbrella school. Even when you file a private affidavit, as we can do here in California, there's just documentation you need. And online planning made that so much easier for me. And additionally, it gave it a much more professional finish for my children as they were applying to college or the Navy and the different avenues that they have taken. I'm going to start today and show you a couple slides of how I did things on paper, and I'm going to compare that to what I can do today using online planning software. And I use Homeschool Planet because it is what works best for me, and it is such a dynamic, amazing program. So let me show you my old schedule. This is from the last year that I used paper, and I am a scheduled gal. I had 4 children in school this year. I would say 3.5 of them are recommended here because one of my children's schedule was so hard to work into this. So I would create a master schedule so that I knew what each child was supposed to be doing at a certain time. I colored it pink because that's when I was at our bookstore teaching classes. So I would have an overview. But my kids, being kids, especially, I think Juju, my youngest, must have been in 2nd grade then, she didn't want to see what everyone was doing. And so then I would create an individualized schedule for each student to have over their desk that told them what they were supposed to be doing. So this would be Carolyn. Then I had to create a separate one for Matthew, another for my daughter Hope, and finally one for little Juju. So I would create one for each of them and shuffle them around till they worked. And then in addition to that, I would have my actual lesson plan book where I would put out each of their assignments that were expected for that day. So for instance, the week of December 16th, Hope in math had to complete lesson 68. And I'm relatively clear that little asterisk there meant she also had a worksheet to do that day. And if you look towards the end on my Friday column, you'll see it says C/U. My kids knew that stood for catch-up days. And that was my way of meeting that idea of holding it loosely in my hand so that if something happened, we had a little cushion built in. And if it didn't, we went on vacation early. The problem is it's almost like snow days on the East Coast. You don't know whether you're going to need an extra 5 days or an extra 2 days. So this is how I broke it. This is another example of a different year where I did the same thing, and I decided I would instead list everyone's math and then everyone's language arts. And both of these plans are part of a 2-page spread. So I would keep them in a 3-ring binder so that I knew what we were working towards. And they helped me. I loved the plan I used, but honestly, I think I loved it because I just didn't know any better. And then I found when I moved to online planning that online planning makes life easy to plan, easy to reschedule, and additionally, it makes it easy to create and maintain documentation. So what we're going to do this morning is we are going to look at a planner live. We want to see how it will help you to plan, to reschedule, to create and maintain the documentation necessary to homeschool with excellence. Because isn't that what we all desire, is to not spend our time planning, but to spend our time interacting with our children, loving our children, and providing them an education. So now I'm going to pull this to full screen for you. And this is my personal Homeschool Planet account. And I decided to use my own because I'm most familiar with it. And I have pulled up here my daughter Juliana's account. She is my youngest child, and she will be in the 7th grade in the coming year. And this is actually our schedule for the coming year. So I'm going to give you a brief overview of what you're seeing, and then I'm going to walk through some of the things I'm able to do with this. The green bars for me indicate these are language arts classes, and I've actually already scheduled those out for the entire school year. The yellow bars across the top are for history, and I have likewise scheduled out my history classes for the year. I'm also able to put in chores, and so Juju has to collect the trash on the 28th, on Tuesday the 28th in the morning. I also choose in my family to include my daughter's dance schedules because they are rather heavy. And so it lets my kids come in and get a look at everything. So with a planner, you're able to put the pieces of your life together so that it's more seamless. So what I do when I start a year is I go into my settings and I set up a school year. So in my case, I like to aim for about 180 days, but really I'm trying to make it so it's the schedule that works. And I am a traditionalist. So we run our year from roughly the last week of August through the end of May. I add and subtract. If I decide that we're going to take off October 15th, I take off October 15th, and then it tells me my school days. So instead of what I used to do, which was to sit with a calendar on my computer screen and counting the weeks and the days and the playing, with a planner, I'm able to just poke in what I want and see. And if it comes up 139 days, obviously I'm going to have a problem. So I list out my days and then I save a school year. I am also able to create the subjects I want. And I used to have a large body of subjects. The great thing about planners is that they work for you. You don't work for them. So with my planner, I several years ago had Latin listed and Greek listed and French listed. Now I list foreign language. And I can change it as I adapt and as I change and as I learn new things. And there is no erasing. There is no whiteout. There is no big changes for me to implement. I can simply go in and adjust things as they work best for me. I also am able to pick grading categories, which I teach primarily. Well, now I guess this year is the first year I won't have anyone under the 7th grade. So I have different categories that I like to grade in. And so I'm able to just add them and use them. Some states require that students track class hours. I do not do that. I have a pretty good idea, but if I wanted to, I could. A terrific planner for you will let you share your calendars. So in this case, I share out my dance calendar. You'll get the idea as we go on that dance runs a portion of our lives in our home. I share out my dance calendars, create a link, and that way my daughters can look at their iPhones and look at their iCalendars and see what their dance schedules are, but I've only had to put it in on one place. You also in a planner want to look that you have ways to have different themes and that you want different colors. I choose to pick a color per subject as well as a color per student. So these are all the things you want to look for so that it makes it work for you. For some people, they need core subjects in red. Then make them red. Again, with a planner, what you're looking for is the ability to make it work for you so that you are able to easily access and organize your information. So that if you want to see everyone's work in one day, you're able to. You can simply add to the calendar and have more events pop up. Or instead, you can, as I'm going to do this morning, work with one student. You'll notice in this planner, it lists my family on the left-hand side. And so I can go in, I can edit a profile, and I can choose how I want to use and see the information. For Juliana, I choose to communicate with her through email. I can option to either send her a daily digest, meaning every morning she wakes up and in her inbox is a cute little list of what she has to do. And that is what I did for a long time with her. Or as my children have gotten older, I found online planning has helped me immensely to let my children take more and more control of their own education. I'm mom, I'm teacher, I want to overview what they're doing, I want to teach them, I want to have a level of control, but I want my hands to be slowly moving away so that when they're adults and they leave my home, they're equipped. Online planning helps that. I moved from using a daily digest to using a weekly digest with my older kids, where they get something once a week that they can just look over. And then they're also able each day to log in. And so when a child logs into software, what you can do is in Homeschool Planet, I can set what Juliana is able to do. So in her case, because she's a young girl, she is allowed to view all her assignments and she is allowed to view her grades. She will not be assigning her grades or editing her classes. My older daughter, Carolyn, however, in her login, she is allowed to assign grades because she teaches a Latin class for me. It's very easy. And I happen to include her, even though she is no longer a student. So I can do things like ask her to go to Costco on the way home and quickly send her my list, which is, may I say, most convenient. So when I am looking at Juliana's account right now, for the coming school year, she has language scheduled and history scheduled. And what I wanted to show you today is how much time you can save when you are online planning. So we're going to actually create 3 different lesson plans this morning through 3 different avenues. And the first is I'm going to create a science class for Juju. And in our home, we will be using Berean Builder's Science in the Scientific Revolution. So I'm going to click in an empty space, and I'm going to create a class. And then I'm going to decide this is science, and I'm going to entitle it, I think today I'm just going to entitle it Revolution. And this is going to be for Juju. Now, I'm not a science everyday gal. So what I want to do is I want to go in and I want to look at the days of the week that are coming. And I've decided we're going to do science Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Thursday is going to be a break day, and then we'll do it on Friday. And so as I do this, my calendar starts to generate below where I can put in assignments. My particular science book has 90 lessons that are covered. And I think what we're going to do, unless I decide to change it later, is we're going to do our actual science lessons on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. But then on Friday, I'm going to go ahead and do labs. And I want to do this as quickly as I can so that I can spend time this afternoon with my girls. So I'm going to select an option. I am going to say that what I would like to do is put in a specific number of assignments that don't have an end date. So how many assignments do I have? I said I have 90. I want 1 per day, and I'm not going to skip any days. Now, assignment's a terrific word. I prefer lesson. So I'm going to say lesson, and can you see beneath here, it's auto-popping out. And then I am going to say what I want my children to do. So I'm going to say read and answer questions. And that looks good. I'm happy with it. I'm going to click OK. And in that amount of time, I now have lessons that are popped out for the whole school year. Oh, look at that. I included Fridays. Do I want to do that? Do I want to change them? I'm actually going to leave them on this one this way. And then what I'm going to do is on Fridays, I'm going to add a second thing. So now I'm going to say, I'm going to repeat the same assignment. So I'm going to go like this. And on Fridays, what I'm going to say is I want 1 assignment only on Fridays. And what I want that to be is lab day. I'm going to add some happy little exclamation points because my kids like lab day. And then I'm going to go like this, and you can see on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we do a lesson. On Fridays, we have lesson and a lab day. Now, I'm completely content with that, and when I hit save, you can see they're on my calendar across. Sometimes I like titles, so I'm actually going to go in, and I'm going to edit this plan, and I'm going to add some titles, because this was so quick and easy that I may as well look at the next piece. And I have my book next to me, and so I am going to name this, oops, if I could spell it would be terrific. Nicholas Copernicus is our first day. Our second day, our lesson is heliocentric systems. So I'm going to add that, and then I'm going to save. And then I see, and I will probably go back through later just because I like to have a glance when I look at it, and my children are why children. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Where are we going today? What's going on? So I can give them as much information as I choose. So in that amount of time, I have created a lesson plan for the entire year for my children. So I now know on October 6th, that would be on October 5th, the goal is to complete lesson 23 and to do our labs. So now I'm going to scoot myself back to the beginning, and I'm going to say, well, terrific. We have language, we have history, we have science. We also want to have a Latin class this year. And I happened to teach Latin to my daughter Hope last year. So I'm going to now add a class, because with a planner, what I'm able to do with this particular planner is to be able to go ahead and use something I have used before. So I am going to go to copy an existing class. And then I'm going to look, and these are upcoming things. The student I taught to was my Hopi. And I don't want it from today. I want her Latin class. Let's see. First form Latin, August 17 to May 18. Perfect. So now I'm going to look. I'm going to assume I was happy with the syllabus that I used, or I would have changed it. I'm going to hit next. I'm going to assign this to my Juge for the coming school year. It says it's been copied, verify it. I'm going to look at it. I have the subject, I have the title, I have who it is for. So I'm going to save. And now in that amount of time, which was even shorter, I have Latin pushed out for my entire school year. Again, and if I switch to month mode, I can see it's across the top. So I have Latin done. So now I'm going to go back to week mode, and I'm going to actually add my last subject that Juliana is going to do in the coming year. And that subject for her is going to be, of course, math. With math, what I would like to do is I would like to use a lesson plan I purchased that's already been pre-done. So I go to lesson plans, and then I'm going to use Think Well Math. I'm going to apply it. I'm going to hit next. Oh, you know what? I don't want to apply it. I want a new class. I'm going to create a new class. I'm going to hit next. I want all assignments. One of the other advantages is the ability for me to use as many plans as I desire. So I have had a child. I actually have switched textbooks mid-year and skipped some things. And so when I did that with him, what I was able to do is just start where we were at. Math is the subject. Again, this is for Juliana. We are going to do math 5 days a week. And so am I going to set up grading? Yes, because I love not calcing out my grades all by myself. Although I do miss my little adding machine, just the teensy tiniest bit. And so now my math is already listed for me for my whole year. I have no more planning to do for math. The way I calculate grades has even been determined for me, though I am able to change it. So it's going to ask me, do I really want to record something for today? In fact, I do, and I'm going to be a really nice mom. She hasn't even done the lesson, and give her 100%. And now it's done. So her math is graded, and I can see by a small check mark that that's done. Now, actually, she didn't do it, and I'm not that nice. So I'm going to undo that lesson. And you also want to look for the ability. I have links with math that will take me straight to Juliana's math class. I also, in the classes I'm teaching, we're using a textbook called Omnibus, and I like my kids to have all their materials right at their fingertips if possible. And so because I have PDF versions of my children's readings for the intro to their books, I can link them through PDF, pull it up, and there it is. So she can see it right there in one simple place. So that is the amount of time it took me. What have we been talking here? For 25 minutes total. Much of that was on other subjects, but I've created a full year of assignments in 3 subjects. This saves me massive amounts of time. So that's the planning side. But so fun is the rescheduling. So if we decide, which one year I actually did this, we were part of a co-op, and we thought it would be really, really fun to have the kids all show up for classes on the first day of school and whisk them off and take them to Disneyland. But we knew our smart little busybody children, especially, if they saw that the first day of school was marked as special, they would know something was up. So that meant I had to live with my lesson plan being off for a while. But if I decide to do that this year, hopefully my children won't see this because they'll have their hopes up and there is no Disney trip. But I can take this lesson and I can just move it over. And then I'm going to be asked, is that what I meant to do? Because it's very possible I just picked something up and dragged it. But I do want to do that. So I want to decide, do I want to carry this forward and leave the rest of the schedule alone? So what that means is, do I want to keep every other day intact as it is and double up, so to say, on the 28th? Or do I want to move my whole schedule out? First, what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift everything out by a day because we're just not going to do foreign language on Monday. And so now every day through the end of the year has been pushed out. But along comes Tuesday and my children are sick from their Disneyland trip and full of cotton candy. So that's probably really politically incorrect, but I'm going to scoot this over and it's going to give me the same option. And this time I'm going to say, no way we are losing a second day. So I'm going to move that day only. And then I'm going to have 2 assignments. So that is a short-term change when I'm just bumping out a day, but my schedule is intact for the entire year. Sometimes, though, bigger things happen. So in the case of science, I'm going to look at what would happen if we had a major issue take place. So what do you do when it's your school year and you're trying to figure out, and mom needs to jump on a plane and fly across country to help an ailing parent or something? What I would do, because I online plan, is I would look and I would go in and I would say, I need to move my plans. And so I am going to shift my entire schedule out. And as a planner, be clear. You can probably guess, I don't really like changing things. But when I need to, the ability to change my schedule brings me peace and it brings me relaxation. So I'm going to shift out my whole schedule and I'm going to look and I'm going to say, realistically, mom is gone for a week and we're going to need recovery time. So I'm going to move my schedule by 2 weeks. And then I'm going to save. And then these days are all empty and my whole schedule has been bumped out. I'm going to save it. And now I have no science for the first 2 weeks. You just simply can't do things like that on a paper planner. You're either erasing, and rescheduling, you're whiting out, you're bumping things. And notice I moved science, but nothing else yet. Because you also have the ability, sometimes we've had this happen. We've ordered a textbook. We know it will absolutely be there on time. So I'm scheduled and ready, and said textbook doesn't arrive. So when the textbook doesn't arrive, what do? In my case, I push things out. So I also want to show you that one of the benefits is the ability, again, to customize per child. I have children, like I said earlier, that want to know what everyone is doing, and I have others that only want to eyes on their own paper, know their own business. So for some people, I'm going to look at just what they have to do that day. I might have a child who does a better job, as I do myself, seeing the week at a glance, more comfortable knowing what's coming. Sometimes you want to have a big idea, but that is the beauty. You can have every person log in themselves if you have a program that gives you the ability to do this, so you can see. Being able to customize is such a benefit. And finally is we get to what do you do about documentation? How do you keep records? How do you manipulate grades? You saw that I put in grades earlier, and now what I want to do is I want to look at a grade report and see how Hope did, because we had a spat in the car on the way home, and actually this really happened, where she said, I got this score, and I said, no, you didn't. And she said, yes, I did. And I said, no. And no arguments. We just came home and pulled her grades. So I have the ability to look at grades, which is something you want to do. You want them to compute for you. So I'm going to say that I need a grade report. And this is going to take just a second to load. And then I'm going to be selecting options like which student I want a grade report. Do I want to know everyone? Do I want summaries? Do I want detail? What I do know I want is I want lots of options. I want to have the ability to see a snapshot sometimes, and other times I want the ability to look and see in some real detail. When your child comes to you and says, what happened to my grade? It's so much easier to look at a computer-generated report than it is to go across I used to create my own micro mini graph paper that I would put all my kids' scores on. So I'm going to say, this is about little Hopi. And I would like to see, whoops, not her, I want to look at foreign language. We could go way back and look at, I don't know what year she did that. So let's instead just go to her first form Latin class. I want to see how she did second semester of last year. And I want to see all assignments, graded and ungraded. So I'm going to pull this up, and it's going to tell me at a glance, she got an A. She had homework, quiz, test, and participation. Or I'm going to say, I need some detail. I need to know how that grade got worked out, because the person I'm reporting to needs more detail. How'd she get a grade that high? I want to know what happened on each one. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to look and I'm going to see. And I'm going to realize, by the way, my children probably won't be thrilled I'm showing their grades, but too late now, right? And I'm going to notice, you know why? Because you didn't do your worksheet on March 23rd. Again, the ability to look at multiple aspects of your grades, the ability to manipulate, the ability to plan in record time, these are all reasons that I love using online planners. I love the ability to see the things that I need to see. And that is a quick wrap up and I realize I just blazed through some different things that you can do when you are working with an online planner. And I am happy to answer any questions. But honestly, I could not go back to the way it was before.
Hello, everyone. This is Kaylin again. And I just wanted to let you know, any questions you may have, you can just put right into our chat box. So the first question we have is, I'm sorry, I'm not sure who they, Brooke, I'm not sure who they is, but do the students put in the grades after the lesson? Do you put in the grades after the lesson? Do they?
In our home, I put in the grades. I have children that
Sorry, Brooke just clarified. Thank you, Brooke.
I put in my students' grades, and actually, call me a control freak, but I put them in all the way through 12th grade. The only time I allow my children to have access to putting in grades is when they're an older student teaching a younger student. So, for example, the way I always taught geography in our home was you took geography in first and second grade, your first time through, and your brother or sister who was in fourth or fifth grade was allowed to teach you, which was actually them taking the class. They just didn't pick up on that till the end. And so I might allow an older child to put in a younger child's grade, but in my home, I do it. but I have the ability to select it so that they can if I choose to allow them. Does that make sense?
Brooke says thanks, and it makes sense to me. So now we have another question from Elizabeth. How do I re-access grading options? The screen asks for finished assignments for a while, but then they disappear once a certain amount of time has passed. Is there a simple way to ask it to display the ungraded assignments for the whole year?
Oh, I have, in fact, let me see if I can go back. I think I understand the question. So if I go back to April of this year and I look at Math Horizons 6 and I go into Grading Helper. Oh, you know what? I went into that wrong. What you want to do, and Joe, jump in if I butcher this, but I'm going to select the class itself and I'm going to edit it. And then I'm going to click on my grading tab. And that's going to give me the option, it defaults to show only ungraded assignments. And I've already done report cards, so I don't have any ungraded assignments, but that would show any that are not graded. If I unclick that box, it will then show all the grades for that semester. But that default, I just spun up really quickly, that default is right through going to the subject, clicking edit, going to your grading tab, and then you're able to see any ungraded all at once. Does that answer that question, Elizabeth?
While we wait for Elizabeth to answer, Amy figured out the answer to her own question, but I thought it was a great one. So I thought I'd ask it anyway, which is, can you explain what the different colored dots are?
Yes, and that is actually a new feature with Homeschool Planet, and those are different students. So, and I don't even remember my students' colors yet because I just did this. Juliana is this color purple, and I'm on her screen, but the dot tells her who else is in that class with her. So both Juliana, if I look at this IEW Bible-based writing lessons, and Kennedy, I know that's Kennedy's color, took this class together. There were 2 of them. First form Latin, there were 4 students, and I assign a unique color to each student just so I know, okay, math Juju does on her own. This one is in a class. So they tell who is in the class.
That is very cool.
Robyn?
Yes.
Joe? I'm going to jump in. You did not butcher that discussion of grading at all. I just wanted to add 2 more things. Another way you could do it is if you go to the top menus and pull up the Grading Helper from the Helpers menu directly. There are dates at the top that control which grades it's showing in the very top section. So it starts on 7/19. You can change that to anything you like, and it'll show older
or newer.
Yeah. And then the other thing I wanted to point out is when you were editing the class and looking at the grades.
Yes.
And on the grading tab, there's not a lot of space. Uncheck the show ungraded assignments so we can see some. There's not a lot of space there, but if you look to the right of where your cursor is now, there's a little expand box in gray, and that'll give you more room to see more of them.
Excellent.
And then you can set it back with the restore icon that's taken its place.
I truly learn new things all the time. Every time I think I've mastered the things I need to know, I learn exciting new things that I didn't even know I could do.
So I actually have a question for Joe that just made me think of. Joe, what is your favorite feature of this planner?
Oh, by far the rescheduling helper. just, you know, in addition to doing it like Robyn was showing in advance, when you know something's coming up or something's happening, it comes up every day and shows you all the stuff that has been hanging fire, and you can choose whether to remove that one or mark it complete because you just didn't get to it, or shift your schedule out. So every day it just lets you keep your schedule fresh without, you know, just at a click of a button.
Can I add in, sometimes it's rescheduling while planning. And what I mean by that is I have more than one time, and I remember almost each time distinctly with my frustration because I planned on paper. I have accidentally turned 2 pages at once while writing out maybe Shirley Grammar, Unit 4, Lesson 2, Exercise ABC. And then to get to the end and think, why am I a week early? And realize I had turned 2 pages at once. And we haven't even started the year, and do I go through and erase every single thing? And so I have found I have more than once, many more than one time, had to reschedule while planning on paper, which is a bear. And with this, I can just bump it back a week and no spilt milk.
So Amy would like to know, if she has not set up a school year because she's school years round and their days off are less planned, is she going to run into any issues down the road from not having a structured school year?
I think I have a couple questions, meaning, does she report to anyone? So I think you would want to set up, even if it's January to January or August to August.
She doesn't report to anyone. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's helpful. I don't believe so. Is there anything I'm unaware of, Joe?
No, it's just the school years are just for reporting and for making it easy to schedule out the dates of things. So when you start a new class, it uses your school year dates to set up when it starts and ends. And when you want to do grading or attendance or anything like that, it groups things by school year. But if you don't want to use those features, you don't have to. And if you put them in, if you decide later that you really wanted school years, you can put them in after, and it'll do all the calculations correctly according to your school years.
Oh, that's fun. I didn't know that.
That is pretty cool. Erica would like to know if she can print the daily and weekly schedules.
Absolutely. You just simply go up and you print. And I will tell you, I'm a cheapo when it comes to computer ink. I don't know why. We all have things we spend money on and things we don't. I don't like buying color ink. And so I would go to economy print personally. And then I would set the parameters of what I want to print. And so that's what we did for a long time. I would send sometimes 1 week at a time. I would print especially when my children were littler. I would on Sunday evening look over, see if anything needed to be pushed out, if anything needed to be tweaked or adjusted. And then I would print the list and I would hand it to each of my children. They all have logins now, but they didn't. And that was exclusively what I did for them.
Another question we have is, if someone wanted to assign a lesson to more than one day, how can they do that while filling out their whole year? For example, if she teaches math lessons typically over the course of 3 days, what do I type in the box to get lesson 1 for 3 days and lesson 2 for 3 days, et cetera, et cetera?
I would probably just, when I put it in, I would use the scheduler and select it to say lesson 1 for 3 days and then lesson 2 for 3 days. But there may be an easier way I am unaware of. Is there, Joe?
If it's a varying number of days for each one, then no, not really. I mean, you'd have to go through for each lesson and record it that many times on the schedule. If it's always like you want to do each lesson for 2 days or 3 days every time, then yeah, you can use the automatic scheduler and just repeat that line in the list, and it'll show it 3 times before moving on to the next one. And if they're mostly 3, but some of them are 2, you can schedule them all through 3, and then just go through and delete the ones that are for 2 if you want.
So if there are no more questions for our panelists, I would love to end this webinar. Oh, we got another one. Does on the website, the lesson plan, such as for teaching textbooks, does it just make it easier to input them?
The lesson plan that you watched me implement for math, Thinkwell 7 for Juju, that is an example of a purchased lesson plan. And so I believe I purchased that for $9.95 and scheduled out the whole year, as you're seeing, with automatic logins because that's an online class in that case, in literally under a minute.
Very cool. Well,
Kaylin, can you hear me?
Yes.
Kaylin, this is Brett. Can I answer the question you asked Joe also?
I was actually just about to ask you that. That's how I wanted to finish off the webinar. I don't know if anybody is familiar with Brett, but he is the brains behind this whole thing. So Brett, can you tell me what your favorite part of Homeschool Planet is?
Well, actually, I have to make one correction. Joe was really the brains behind the whole thing, but I helped him look good. But in terms of my favorite feature, I just want to, it really, and it's not just mine. I mean, if you read through the testimonials on the co-op website for Homeschool Planet, you'll see this over and over and over again, that what people really love is the rescheduling helper. And I just wanted to make sure everyone understands that virtually every kind of rescheduling situation that you can think of is covered by Homeschool Planet. I mean, you can have, like in Robyn's case, 6 children, and you could be teaching each child, 5 subjects, and every day for each of those subjects, for each of those children, there may be 1 or 2 assignments. And as Robyn used that phrase, I love sometimes life happens and maybe grandma gets sick and you have to go somewhere. You can, with a few clicks, reschedule your entire calendar for all your kids with a few clicks. Or maybe it's not a situation like that. Maybe it's one child gets sick and she needs to take a week off. And so you need to give her a break, but leave everybody else alone. That can happen. And I just want to, say to folks that, I think everybody who uses paper understands how powerful that feature is. But I also want to caution you that just, not all online planners can do that. So if you're looking at other online planners, and I certainly suggest you do so, just keep that in mind, that they certainly don't all do that. I'm not even actually personally aware that any others have this much power, but it's possible because I haven't looked at every one in detail. But I know Homeschool Planet, can do it. So you'll find that, just like with paper planners, all online planners are not created equal. So that was just my 2 cents. Thank you, Kayla. I appreciate the question.
Oh, of course. And I just want to thank all of our panelists for taking the time to share their experience with online homeschool planning, as well as some insight into how to use Homeschool Planet. And I want to thank all of our attendees for joining our webinar today. If you are using Homeschool Planet or you have any questions, we encourage you to contact our support at homeschoolbuyerscoop.com, .org. They're all wonderful homeschool moms who are very knowledgeable and are excited to help you. So thank you all and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.